Hey guys, I'm Matt, a developer from Ohio, and in this video, I'll be walking you through the Rooster regulation project. To complete this project, you'll need to be familiar with JavaScript, Mocha describe it blocks, node assertions, and the phases of a good test, which are setup, exercise, verify, and sometimes teardown. Let's get started. In this project, someone has gone ahead and programmed a Rooster object without writing any tests along the way. We're going to write a suite of tests that will make sure that the object is performing exactly how we want it. Each test also acts as documentation because the string in an it block is an effective description of one requirement. Because we need assertions in this project, we're going to use the require function to import the assert module. We'll come over here to our test script and write that assert equals require assert. We also need to import the Rooster object in order to perform tests on it. We're going to do that pretty much the same way here, with Rooster requiring, and we're going to just get the path to our index, which is this file here. To start writing our suite of tests, we'll create a describe block for the entire Rooster object. That's going to look like this. Describe. We'll use Rooster as the string. And the second parameter here is an arrow function. Now we'll create a second describe block for Rooster's announce dawn method. We'll nest this block inside the first because we're mimicking the structure of the object itself, which, as you can see here, rooster.announceDawn. Announce dawn is one level below Rooster attached to it. So we'll put our describe block right here. Describe.announce dawn, like that. And again, our second parameter will be an arrow function, like that. Our actual tests will take the form of it blocks, each of which will describe a specific desired behavior of a method. In this case, we're testing that it returns a Rooster call, so we'll write it and returns a Rooster call. And once more, we'll define an arrow function to define the body of this block. Inside the it block, we'll use our test phases to write our testing logic. In this case, we don't need a teardown phase because we won't be permanently modifying anything. So I'll go ahead and set up our setup, exercise, and verify stages. Under setup, we're going to define our expected result, which is the string cock-a-doodle-doo, which is the noise that our Rooster is supposed to make. Under exercise, we'll get the actual result, which is going to be rooster.announceDawn. And then we're going to, under verify, use an assertion to check that our actual is the same as our expected. So we'll put in actual and expected, like this. Now that we've written a test, we can come over here to the terminal, type in npm test, and see the result of our test. You can see that we have one failed test here. We don't return a Rooster call because we're returning moo instead of cock-a-doodle-doo. Now that we've used our test to identify a problem, we can come over to index.js and switch out the offending string with the correct one. Save that and run our test again. We should see that we pass now because we do in fact return a Rooster call. There's a second method in our Rooster object, which is time@dawn. We'll go back to our testing code and add a describe block for this method. Still inside of Rooster, but beneath of announce dawn, we'll add a describe block that describes time@dawn. And just as always, we'll define the body of our block as an arrow function. This method is supposed to output the string form of its number input. So we'll write an it block to make sure that this is working correctly. We'll write it returns its argument as a string. Open the body here. And then, just like before, we'll have our setup, exercise, and verify phases. Under setup, we'll still have our expected result, and under exercise, we'll still have our actual result. And then under verify, we're going to make an assertion that the two are equal, just like before. However, this time we have an input value. So we're going to make input number, and we can pick any number we want between 0 and 23. So I'm just going to pick 12. That makes the expected value the string 12. Just make sure that's the string of the exact same number. And then actual is going to be rooster dot time at dawn, because that's the method that we're testing. And we're going to pass in our input number. So we're passing in our input number, and we're expecting this expected value. Save this, then run a test. You see that now we have two tests. We still have our announce dawn test for returning a rooster call, but now we have a test for time at dawn returning its argument as a string, which it does as expected, so we don't need to fix anything there. We also want to make sure that time at dawn is correctly rejecting times that don't fit into a 24-hour day. Values below 0 or over 23 will throw a range error. We'll split this into two tests, one for below and one for above, in order to more easily identify potential problems. So beneath our first it here, we'll add another, and this can be throws a range error if passed a number less than 0. And then we'll open up the body here. Instead of this, we're going to set up our three phases as usual. We'll have setup, exercise, and verify. Under setup, we'll have our input number, and here you can pick any number below 0, like -1. Our expected value is going to be range error instead of any kind of number, because you can see here that if the value is below 0 or over 23, we're supposed to throw a new range error. So our expected value is a range error and not a number. We're still going to use an assertion, but we're going to use assert.throws, which is going to tell us whether or not a given function returns a specific error. So our second argument here is the expected error, and our first is actually going to be an anonymous function. So you can go ahead and put in rooster.timeatdawn input number into here. Now, there's a way to do this where we get the error and put it under exercise the same way we formatted all of these other steps, but that's going to get really messy pretty quickly, so we're just going to remove that. The exercise step is still in here. It's just a little less clear where it's at. It's just right here. Now we're going to save this and run another test. We should see that we now have three tests. Now we test for whether or not it throws a range error when passed a value less than 0, which it does in this case. We need one last if block to check for range error on values above 23. Now, because this is so similar to checking for values below 0, I'm actually just going to copy and paste this whole block and change our 1 here to any value above 23, say 24. And we also want to change our message here to say more than 23. Now, if we save that and test it, we should have 4 total tests, 2 of which are range errors, 1 less than 0 and 1 more than 23. And that works as expected, so we can continue. Make sure you're running npm test regularly. In this project, we created 4 tests over 2 methods on 1 object. Our tests are fast because the implementation is brief and simple. Our tests are complete because the entirety of Rooster and its methods is covered by our 4 tests. They're reliable because We get the same result every time we run npm test. They're isolated because no test relies on any other test. And they're expressive because we use descriptive strings that make result messages easy to read. I'm Matt for Codecademy. Happy coding!